Thanks for listening to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry, here to help educate, motivate, and put you on the right path to take control of your health through weekly discussions on topics in the medical field, public health arena, and in your community. And now your host, Dr. Barry.
And welcome to another episode of the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. I'm your host, Dr. Barry Pierre, your favorite board-certified internist, founder of drbarrypierre.com, as well as the CEO of Pierre Medical Consulting, helping you empower yourself for better health with the #1 podcast for patient advocacy, education, and affirmation. This week we bring you episode 137, which is going to be the final episode of 2019, and such an amazing year this has been, and I'm so excited to be bringing you this episode. It's going to be a solo episode where we're truly kind of talking about how the year went here on the podcast and what to expect next year as we wind down season 3 of the podcast episode. For those who may not know, we've been kind of rocking season 3 this whole year, and it's been such a wonderful experience that I just can't wait to tell you about it. So again, if you have not done so already, please make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a 5-star review. Let us know, exactly how this podcast is helping you or helped you for 2019 and how you plan to use what you learned in this podcast, from episode to episode for 2020 to empower yourself for better health. So without further ado, let's get ready for another amazing episode here on the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. This episode is brought to you by the Lunch and Learn Community Store, where we are living out the motto, empower yourself for better health. In the Lunch and Learn Community Store, you can get your favorite t-shirts, ebooks, as well as other related products by Dr. Barry. Head over to shop.drpiersblog.com and get a chance to get 10% off your first purchase by using the coupon code EMPOWER10. Again, shop.drpiersblog.com. Live out the motto, empower yourself for better health. All right, and welcome to Dr. Barry. So I want to say, first of all, welcome to the end of season 3 here on the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry. And I want to first and foremost say thank you for all of the listeners this past season, whether you started at the beginning, whether you just started listening last week. I want to thank you for all of your support and your well wishes. It's been such an amazing season that, I want to kind of talk about it kind of from beginning to end, pretty briefly, right? But really kind of hit home, what some of the goals were for this season and, did we hit our goals and what we have in store for season 4. So when we started out season 3 was a change in pace. If you've been listening, since season 1, I was kind of running this show pretty solo, where a lot of the episodes were kind of like this, right? Where I was kind of talking about a specific medical topic and kind of giving you my interpretation, especially from the eyes of an internist. But I wanted to make such a huge effort in kind of turning that corner and really highlighting a lot of different experts in fields that I kind of knew of, right? Like I knew of some of the discussion, but I wouldn't know it as much as someone who's like knee deep into the field, right? So we actually made a transition to season 3 to bring more guests on, right? Because it was something that had been requested from our listeners because they wanted to kind of hear what different experts had to say about the topics we were doing. And so we really made it that point to bring you guests week in, week out, right? Which was, again, I think a bit of a struggle, especially in the beginning, not because it was difficult to find people, but it was difficult to get on people's schedule and get everyone's schedule kind of aligned to kind of record to bring you amazing content, which really shows how much effort it took in the background to get all of these amazing guests here. And I realized as a solopreneur, right, when you're doing this podcast solo, it's much easier to kind of start on the fly, get on the fly, and just kind of start talking and recording. But when you're bringing guests and, you're bringing ideas to an episode and you're kind of absorbing what they're saying, especially when they're trying to educate you. It was such an eye-opening experience for me that I absolutely loved it, right? So I definitely want to say from that, I really think we hit it out the park because we had much more guests that kind of help open up the show and open up the audience to bring in more listeners. And that was definitely evident in just some of the numbers that we've seen over the past year. And in doing so, I actually ended up being able to bring on more people because if you're a long time listener to the show, I used to say the word "we" a lot in terms of like we need to do this and we need to do that, but it really came into fruition this year, and especially with this season on the podcast, because the amount of work became so great that if it was just up to me to edit the podcast, record the podcast, schedule guests, do transcripts, especially for those that don't realize we actually do transcripts for the podcast. If we didn't do all of that, right, especially if that was all on me, then we definitely would have fell short in bringing you great podcast episodes week in and week out. So I was able to bring on a couple of team members to really kind of help solidify what we're doing on a podcast, which again, you know the motto, empowering yourself for better health, right? That's always been our goal, and really helping bring such an enlightening view of what healthcare is and what public health and how it affects you on a day-to-day basis was such an amazing experience. And that being said, right, I think I'd be remiss not to highlight our guest of the year, right? Because we've had so many amazing guests on this show whose introspective thought process on, how they attacked healthcare and how they learned and grew within this healthcare field was such an amazing thing to see that I was blown away. I used to jokingly say, but like I was very truthful, that a lot of the times my guests were educating the lunch and learn community, but I was learning just as much as them. Like I would get just as excited to hear what my guests were saying versus the questions I had to ask them. And again, I was coming prepared to ask them questions, and I was still excited to hear about their answers. And there's been so many highlights. Of course, we won't name specific episodes, right? Because there's been so many highlighted episodes. So I definitely suggest you go out and go back and listen to, especially if you missed a couple. Go out and listen to some of those old episodes of some of the guests who done such an amazing job. And it's interesting, once they're like a guest on my show, they're like family. So I'm constantly I follow them, whether they're on social media or their websites, and I'm just loving to see the extra things that they do, after leaving the show. So I was definitely glad to kind of be a small part in some of the amazing stuff that they do on a year in, year out basis. Now, that being said, I think some of the changes that we plan on bringing for the next season, season 4, and as we move forward to season 4, which I'm hoping will start around February. That's the goal. That's the hope. We'll see how that kind of turns out. When we talk about season 4 and what are some of our plans and goals and our aspirations, right? Because again, me, I'm a big affirmation guy. I think if you say it out loud, and people are able to hold you accountable, you tend to want to do things more because you don't want to disappoint people. So out loud, I want to say the plans that we have for season 4 is to really bring video to the show, because there was a lot of times where we recorded a video on the podcast episodes and reviews that I did, but we never really kind of took it and pieced it together and threw it on the YouTube page and threw clips on the face. We didn't necessarily do that. I just kind of took the audio and kind of ran with it. And my goal, especially for season 4, is to bring much more, and I should say much more because I haven't done any, right? I say it's to bring video content to you guys so you can kind of see how, I'm doing my interviews and asking the questions and seeing how, your favorite guests are responding to questions and answers, because it's such a free-flowing conversation. Again, I talk when I'm talking with my guests, a lot of times we're just kind of going back and shooting the breeze. It's not a high-pressure situation because they understand, right? Our audience isn't here to be lectured to like they're in school, right? They're just here to be educated on what they should do to kind of get their healthcare together, what they should do to get their family's health care together. And that's always been my goal. My goal has always been to make healthcare seem cool, right? To make healthcare seem like something that you could be 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and you still want to be with it, right? Because as a physician who's taking care of patients in a hospital, as a physician who's taking care of patients in the outpatient setting as well, I understand how important it is to start early and on time. Because the worst thing that can happen, right, is if you end up in the hospital, end up in someone's doctor's office, and you're a year too late, you're 2 years too late, right? Like, that's the worst thing that can happen, right? Again, I've had patients end up in a hospital setting with strokes, who didn't even realize they had high blood pressure, who didn't even realize something was wrong with their cardiovascular system, right? I had patients who ended up needing amputations who didn't even realize they were a bad diabetic. That's what we're trying to prevent here on the podcast. And when the goal is bringing on amazing guests, talking about amazing content for these amazing listeners, which are you guys, right? Again, I just first and foremost say thank you for all that you've done. And again, you guys have made 2019 such an amazing experience that, again, I couldn't ask for anything more. So I want you to enjoy this week's episode, right? Like I said, it's going to be a short one, right? Because I didn't want to talk your head off, right? I just wanted to say thank you and, kind of do a quick recap of season 3 and what to expect for season 4, because we got some amazing guests coming for season 4. Like, it's so funny. Like, as I record this, I'm recording this in the month of December, right? So as I record this, right, there's been so many guests who have said yes, they want to get on the show, that I've kind of put off until season 4 kicks in, because I really want to, bring that amazing content to you guys, right? Like, again, we're going to be talking in season 4 about colon cancer. We're going to be talking about direct primary care. We're going to be talking about heart disease in women. We're going to be talking about a lot of different, breast cancer. And we're going to be talking about so many different topics that I'm so excited for, that I didn't want to kind of squeeze it in at the end of season 3, because I want you guys to be able to digest the amazing content that we got for you guys. So, like always, remember, leave us a 5-star review, whether you're listening to this on, especially if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts. But if you're listening to this on any, podcasting outlet that has comments and reviews, please leave us a review. Make sure you subscribe to the show. And, tell one friend, tell 10 friends to subscribe to the show today, and get ready for season 4. Like I said, so we won't be having any new episodes for a few weeks, right? But we're gearing stuff up together, so when it is time to go, we'll be ready. So you guys have a great and blessed day. Have a great and blessed holidays, and I'm gonna see you on season 4. Thank you for getting to the end of the show. I am your host, Dr. Barry Pierre, host of the Lunch Learn with Dr. Barry, and this is another amazing episode that we like to bring to you week after week on betterment of empowering yourself for better health today. If you have not had a chance, please go ahead and subscribe to the show. If this is your first time listening, if you already listen and you've already subscribed, make sure to leave me a 5-star review, because your support is absolutely important in keeping the show moving as it is. And if you have not had a chance and you want to check out today's show notes, always head over to lunchlearnpod.com. That is lunchlearnpod, all in one word.com, and you can get the access to my show notes for every single episode, but especially the one you just listened to. And I'm gonna see you guys next week. You guys be blessed. Bye.